All right, so with that, welcome again to the FCI Live video series. We do this twice a year, usually in January or February, and in the fall. This is our second time doing it. We're so grateful you're all here and that you all loved it so much the first time that you wanted us to keep going. Today, our guest is Arlene Wilborn, the general manager of the North Flint Food Co-op Market in North Flint, Michigan. They have broken ground within the last week and a half here. Very, very exciting time to have her on. And the reason we asked Arlene very specifically is because it's unusual to get the opportunity to get a GM perspective from a GM who's just been hired by a startup, has been working with a startup, but doesn't have an open store yet. And to hear about what's on their plate, what tools they're utilizing. And Arlene has a really unique, terrific perspective. She's a natural cooperator. That's my opinion. She gets it right away and is just a perfect fit for our industry and what co-ops are all about. But she comes from conventional grocery and has a deep, deep background in it. So she's going to be able to talk a lot to those, what is necessary to get the store set up on an internal level as a GM, because she knows this stuff and has worked for companies with really good systems in place. So without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my slide here and I'm going to turn this over to Arlene.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline, for having me on today. And I just want to say hello to everybody, but those are in Michigan. I am so happy to see folks from Detroit, from Bay City. We came out and we represented Michigan, so kudos to all of you guys. But just like Jacqueline said, I really am, I feel very glad to be here today because I would like to share my perspective from the general manager's point of view. Like Jacqueline said, I come from Myers. And for those that don't know, Myers is just like a Walmart. It's the same concept, but different name. And over the 26 years that I worked at Meijer, I was able to start off as a bagger. And then I got into management, and I done management through the GM part, the customer service area, the supermarket area, the third shift. And then I became the store director of a Myers, and I had 25 leaders, 280 team members, and of course, all of the customers that came into the store. But one thing about Myers, I was able to learn a lot of skill sets that helped me for this position for the North Flint Food Market. And I like to share my ideas with you guys today. So sit back. If you have any questions, just like Jacqueline said, let's put them in the chat box. But this is open questions, and I would like to help you out as much as possible. So now I'm going to share my screen with you. I was going to try to make it where it's, there it is. Okay. So can everyone see the screen? I'm going to put that open there. Okay, so this was just a little things that I brought together for the general manager's workbook. For North Flint Food Market, we are a co-op that's opening in the urban community of Flint, Michigan. As you guys know, Flint, Michigan was hit with the water crisis in 2014, where there was high levels of lead in our water that many of our residents consumed. And now we're trying to find a way to combat with that lead poisoning. So we need to be able to offer fresh, healthy vegetables and fruits to combat with the lead poisoning. So if we just fast forward to 2021, this co-op has 928 members as of today, and we're looking to get to a milestone of 1,000 members by the end of this year. But I tell everyone that we're never going to stop growing membership. So let's make milestones rather than goals, because when people hear goals, they stop thinking and you have to move ahead. So I always state milestones. But so far, we just had our groundbreaking ceremony last week, and we had over 100 individuals that came out from everyone from our state, local levels of dignitaries, as well as over 100 member owners that came out on a nice sunny day. I would like to tell you a little bit more that the median family income in this area is $27,000. It's pretty much 90% Black Americans stay in this area. And we have not had a groundbreaking ceremony in this area as long as I can remember. And that's been over 45 years. So this is very huge for this community. So I brought this up. What will your general manager need in their toolkit? These are just some of the things that I think that they will need, but trust me, you don't want the toolkit to be so heavy that your general manager cannot level set. So keep that in mind for their toolkit, because I look at it as this is the general manager, but this is a food co-op. So try to find ways to level set that toolkit so it's not so heavy for your GM to reach. So for me, I truly believe in history. I think every one of us has a story to tell. So let the general manager be able to tell that story, especially when they're trying to hire individuals with skill sets to work in the store. I think that history means so much. And also a mission statement. What is your general manager trying to tell the employees, the residents, the community? And I think the mission statement means so much, and that's something that can be addressed all the time, every day. Make it something simple that they can work on as some of their goals. Financial reports. We have to have financial reports if we want to stay in business. And your general manager needs to be able to articulate, read those, and be able to share that information with others. Job descriptions is very important. I think some of us, we may know what we want in our leadership as well as our team members, but it needs to be written out, because the hiring process is so important for you to deliver your expectations and what type of atmosphere you want to create in your work environment. That needs to be delivered during your hiring process. As a general manager, you want to know your building structure. Now, I'm not talking about all the weeds, but you want to know the square footage. You want to know what type of paints are going on your walls, because for me, I am very detailed. So after 5 years that we're open, you may have to go through and touch up certain areas. So if you have those paint swatches at your fingertips, it's easy to go in and retrieve that paint rather than trying to find what paint matches your walls. You want to be part of that conversation, because here in North Flint Food Market, they hired me a lot sooner than later. So I was able to be part of that conversation when it comes to the construction piece, when it comes to what do the designs want to look like inside the store. So I was able to be part of that conversation. But as a general manager, it's always a good selling point that you know how many square footage is going to be when you're talking to other people that want to become members. Equipment is so important. I think that you want to know if your equipment works. I mean, sometimes we get the equipment, we install the equipment, but if you wait until the grand opening to see if it works, you're in trouble. So run through your equipment, making sure that it works properly, and be able to have numbers at your fingertips if your equipment is not working. So you can be able to contact that manufacturer and make sure that they're at your fingertips if you have to replace any certain equipment. One thing that I think about is when you're having your grand opening. I truly believe in soft openings. So that way, if you have any equipment that's maybe not, you had a couple of hiccups, you're able to tweak that information or that equipment before you have your major grand opening, and you may be in too many different places and you need to just bring that all in. So keep that in mind when it comes to your soft openings rather than your grand openings. Hiring and training. This is crucial to your food co-op. I like to spend a lot of time with my hiring where I've already designed that we're going to go through a 2 process for interviews, because we have so many individuals that want to be part of this team. So we want to have maybe some of your member owners or some of your board members do the initial interview, but then if they pass the first interview, then you pass them on to me so I can find out where they're going to fit in our food co-op. So I like to have, I'm a big football fanatic, so I love sticky notes, and I love to just put on my board where I'm going to put Bob or where Sally is going to go, so I can move them around. And that creates that, let me see where they will fit on my big board. But that's just something that I like to do. But I think it's very important that you lay the groundwork in your hiring process, that when you're looking at your leadership, how can they make the sales? Tell me how you can make the sales. Walk me through what your department should look like. Show them what your expectations are, and let them tell you their story. Because a lot of people may tell you they can do it, but until you get them behind the scenes, like, this is not what I expect, you need to be able to address that and let them know that this is not going to bring any profits for the store. And the training is so crucial, guys. We're building something that's different in our area. So I always tell all of my team, we need to be ready on day 1, because we have media, we have so many eyes looking at us that we want to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. So training, in my opinion, has to be at least 2 months. You want to get your team on board, but you need to show them how to use equipment. You got to show them how in-stock conditions should look like, what first in, first out rules look like. That takes time. And some of your people may not know what first in, first out is. And that's first in with the dates and then first out, because you never want to stop close dated product in the back and outdated in the front. You want to make sure that you keep that rotation going. And sometimes that may take some training.
We've got a couple of questions. Can I interject?
Go ahead.
All right. People are already lining them up, so I don't want to get too far behind. First, great question from Sheila. She said, first off, does North Flint have an on-the-ground project manager? Are you doing both jobs? How is that working for you? As the GM, are you both?
No, I am not. We do have Dr. Reginald Flynn. He is the project manager. So great question, but no, I'm not doing both.
And that is generally the case. There are occasions where that's not, but generally there's both. So that was a great question. Someone brought up in Bay City, said, logistically, I like the idea of soft openings to work out kinks, but does this need to be done in a way as not to take away from the impact of the grand opening?
Well, that's very, very good question. And no, this is not to take away from the impact, but this is just to work out any kinks, because one of the hiccups that I think of is your point of sales. And if you have problems with people not being able to make purchases properly, you do not want that to happen on your grand opening. So if you have a soft opening, you'll be able to work out any kinks that you may have. I like to call them hiccups, and hiccups do happen, but you just want to be able to fix those right away.
if I could interject real quick, what we're seeing with startups right now is that the concept of the soft open is moved. I would have said the concept of the soft open in the past I was against. Now it's be fully ready. Have it for every reason to believe the store is going to function great when you first open the doors, and then soft open by basically not promoting the heck out of the opening, promoting it to owners. So it's kind of like, hey, owners, we're open, and let owners and word of mouth happen for a period of time before the grand opening and the huge marketing push. And that's what they did at Oshkosh. That's what they did at Gem City. No, they didn't do it at Gem City. Gem City kind of get deluged on day one. And guess what went wrong? The POS system. So, which is almost what goes wrong every first day the store is open. And they did the same in Fredericksburg. And it seems to have worked out okay. So I want to point out, it doesn't mean open while your store should, it can operate at full capacity. But Arlene, I think you're talking about, like, let's not, send out the press notices and have a grand opening. Let's ease in. Does that sound right?
That does, yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. And just people saying, yes, they agree with that. They think that sounds great. All right. Sorry. I will hand it back to you.
But getting back to training, I think it's very important also for team building during this training process, because as a general manager, you're going to be spending 40 plus hours with these individuals. You're going to become part of a family. So I think team building is part of your training. And this is a way that you guys can get to know each other, find out some of the challenges that you guys are going to be faced with. Let's talk about it. Let's have that Q&A problem. I know that training does happen inside the store, but you also want to get to know who your team members and your leaders are. Supplies and vendors. This is huge because one thing about your vendors, they will try to take over if you don't set some parameters. And that is important by having a scheduled meeting with your vendors, letting them know what your expectations are, letting them know that my bread should be delivered at this particular time. Don't let them tell you when they're going to bring stuff in. You let them know when I need this in, because guys, you want to make sure that your shelves are fully stocked. And if your vendors feel like, well, I'm going to bring in all of this so I can store it in your back room, you let them know this is how much room you're allowed to bring in. Because vendors would try to, they would try to use you as their warehouse. And remember, you only have so much room for all of the product in your back room. Don't let your vendors take advantage of that. And when it comes to your suppliers, you want to build that relationship, but you also want to set parameters with them as well, because their job is to get the product into your store. But also, you got to let them know that I only have so much room, and you got to be able to work that out. And I feel that it's very important to have those meetings, have those conversations, and those contact numbers whenever you're going to have some hiccups. And trust me, you will have hiccups.
Question for you. If your board is, GM's going to be coming in and they're trying to get together all this vendor information beforehand, is that useful? What should the board not promise folks when they're talking to vendors before the GM shows up? Like, what are your thoughts on them getting the information to the GM who's coming as usefully as possible?
For the board members, getting contact information. Don't tell a vendor, oh yeah, we got room for that. You bring that on in. Tell them, let my GM get back with you. Give me your name, your number, or email address. So that way you can communicate that with your GM, but don't make promise on behalf of your GM until your GM is on board and they get an opportunity to see how they can fit that in. Because what you don't want to do is the toolkit. Remember, we want to make sure the toolkit is light enough for the GM to handle. Don't make it so heavy that they can't even lift it up. So always just keep in mind, get the contact information.
I would add, I also wonder if you've run into this yet. Sometimes the board's very emotionally attached to certain vendors being used in the store. Where would that come up, Arlene, that someone might seem like a perfect fit on a mission level but will not end up being on the store shelves. Can you ever foresee that happening?
I can remember a situation where I was with Myers and it was Cinco de Mayo. So I had a vendor who was selling some type of liquor. And of course, they wanted to just stock my back rooms full of this particular liquor. I had enough liquor for 5 Cinco de Mayos. So that's where you have to get back to the fact of I only have so much room. And if there are certain vendors that they're so dear to your heart, you always consider and negotiate, but don't make those promises until you find out what you can do. And if they understand that, they're going to come back and be able to work something out. But don't let the vendor tell you what they're going to do.
Perfectly said. I'll leave it at that. We've got some more questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
People are curious about how closely are you working with the project manager and what's that relationship?
We talk on a daily basis. I mean, I got my cell phone on mute just in case I get an email or a text message. But you have to have that close relationship because in our case, we work closely because we have to. I mean, there's certain information that I can share that they may not know, or vice versa. So I truly believe that you got to have a relationship on day one. And like I said, some things don't happen 9 to 5. Some things may happen 10 o'clock at night. And I like to make myself available when that time comes.
And we've got a question that goes back to something near and dear to your heart, training. What kind of support systems having in place for the training process? I think you've noticed the food co-op world does not have what some of the corporate places have. What have you been putting in place? What needs to be in place for that whole training hiring process?
That's a great question. When it comes to some of your suppliers may have trainers in place that you can connect with them and they can help out with your training. Like for instance, in our store, we're going to have a meat department. We're going to have a produce department. We're going to have a deli, bakery, dry goods, frozen, and dairy. It'll be over 21,000 square foot building. So when I can rely on some of my suppliers to help me with that training, that's one key. But for me, I've already created what my training will look like. So I've already created my own documents to share with my team on what it means to be on time for work. What does absenteeism looks like? What does it mean to offer that customer service and give them examples of what customer service should look like? What should my cash control look like in my cashiers? What's their dollar amount? And in our case, it's a $5 plus or minus. So that piece is already documented, and that way I can share with them what that should look like. Does that answer the question?
No, I think let's keep moving. And I think that got us caught up.
Gotcha. Okay, so are there any other questions? And I take that as a no, so we will keep moving on. Merchandising. I think it's important that when you're stocking your shelves, and this is before opening, you want to make sure things flow properly. Sometimes you may need not only your eyes, but also some other eyes to look at product, because what you don't want to see is, and this is only an example, if your condiment aisle has tissue in it, that doesn't flow for your shoppers. So you want to make sure that you're looking at details at your aisles. When you're in your meat department, making sure that your product is nicely and full, and that should be every day. That just shouldn't be for grand opening, but you should be walking your aisles just to make sure that we have products on the shelf. Because if you're showing empty shelves or 1 to 2 things on the shelf, you got to ask that question, why? Is it in the back room? as my supplier hasn't brought the product, but continue to be asking the why. Because if your shelves are empty, customers will go elsewhere and shop, and you don't want that. In-stock conditions are a must. You always want to open with in-stock conditions on every single day. And once again, if you're not, then why you have empty shelves? Because I always tell anybody, people can't eat a rain check. So make sure you have product on the shelves. Clean. You want to make sure that your areas are clean. And that's not just inside, that is outside, because you have so many customers, I like to call our community, they're looking to see, and you want to be able to provide them with a clean and neat store. And just stay straightened, not just on the sales floor, but in your back rooms. Sometimes you get quite a bit of supplies coming in. You got to make sure that you're keeping your back room neat and organized. It's going to be easier to find some products if it's in the right spot rather than not. And this here is just an example. As you can see on the left, they have product, but they're not fully stocked. And as you can see on the right, it's fully stocked. Everything's brought to the front. It makes a great representation. And that's how you want to look every single day. When it comes to product placement, you want to be able to, your shoppers want to be able to just shop with ease. It's very important that in our case, the produce department is in the front of the store, because we want to provide that wow when they walk in the door. You want to make sure that your shelves are stocked fully, neatly, and colorful. People love to see color, and you want to make sure when they walk through that door, that is what they're seeing. Cross-contamination, well, that goes with your sanitation. You want to make sure that your chemical products, like in the back room, are separate from your food. If you had a visit from the Department of Ag, they're going to dock you for critical violation if they notice any of your food products is closely related to your chemicals. You also want to make sure that control is more temperature control. If you're receiving product in that should be at a particular temperature, you want to take a temperature check on that product before you accept it. Because if the temperature is out of temperature date or temperature control, you don't want that on your sales floor. So make sure that you're marking that down with temperature control dates and sheets, and making sure that you file that in case someone ever asks. We talked about first in, first out rules. You want to make sure that your team understands that and is following that process. When it comes to product on the floor, you never ever can stock product right on the floor. It has to be 6 inches off the floor, because that's a violation. And I look at it as you don't want to shop with something on the floor. So make sure that your displays are representing that. When it comes to stocking, you never want to stock too much heavy product on the top shelf, because some of them shelves can lean over, they can tip over, and they can cause a major accident. So please make sure that you keep that in mind. And you never want to stock things too high. I will admit, I am very short. So you don't want to see one of your customers stepping on the shelf, trying to get something from the top shelf. So you want to make sure that you keep it at a level that anyone can shop.
I've got a question here for you, if this is a good moment.
Yes.
All right. Rachel brought up, so, how much of this, opening merchandising will be your staff versus your suppliers, vendors? Are you actually choosing vendors based on their ability to kind of come in and execute their own planogram, signage, so forth? How much will you let, how much you let the vendors do that work?
if I can get all my suppliers to do that, I would love that. I mean, I think it's important to get your suppliers in to do most of that work, but I do truly believe that your team will be responsible for the pricing, making sure that you got your signage up. I truly believe that you want to make sure anywhere in your store, you have some type of pricing. You don't want your customers knowing, well, how much is this? There's no tag to indicate that. So make sure that you have price points throughout your area.
I will say Gem City did rely on their primary supplier to do their shelf sets and even their pricing tags. And I think that I think Leah would be comfortable. I'm comfortable saying Leah would recommend what Arlene's saying here was let them go ahead, let them do some shelf sets and help you out. But those price tags, they found that the price image was way off. They had to go through and redo them all because even though that vendor was from the community, should have overall known the community and the price image. That was something that really needed to be under the management's control. So that was a great question. And Bay City said, are the vendors you're using for the co-op, it's just your suppliers, are they going to be ones that you've previously worked with in the grocery industry, or are you bringing in a lot of new ones which cater more to co-ops?
Oh, very good question. And the answer is yes, we are. We are looking at AWG out of Wisconsin. We do have a supplier in Grand Rapids, but we are interviewing both of them to see what we can get out of what they can deliver for us. And then what decision will be made. But I'm really looking towards AWG because they're a co-op distribution center. So I would like to support all of our co-ops. But very good question.
Yeah, that was a great one. And for those who don't know AWG, they're a conventional grocery supplier. They have a little bit of natural and organic, but they're more conventional focus. And that is who Gem City's working with. If you're like, so they service a good chunk of the Midwest. If you guys are in the Midwest and are looking for conventional food supplier.
And I would like to say that for our food co-op, we're going to be 80% conventional with a 20% organic and natural. And the reason for that is in our community, we have to look at our demographics and the price points, and organic and natural will probably be a little too expensive for our shoppers, but maybe down the road, we'll like to bring the 80 down to 70 and bring the 20 up to 30. So we'll see how that works out, but starting off, it will be at 80%, 20%.
Did you actually see Katie's question, or were you just on the same page? Katie literally entered that question when you started talking about it. You two were on the same page.
Katie, we're on the same page here, but yes, that is one thing that the food co-op in our area we were trying to do.
Okay, and that's the same product mix that Gem City has gone with pretty consistently. If you guys want to take a look at how that's working out, but that's going pretty well for them as well. Good. All right. We're through the questions. We're ready to keep moving.
Let's go.
Thanks.
So this is huge too, pricing. Once again, you want to make sure that everywhere you don't want to go flood your signage, but you really want price points on everything. I mean, it is very crucial to all of your product in your store, and it sells. One of the things that I truly believe in is announcements. If you have something that's close dated, you want to make sure that you can go through your sales, and announcements are great. Some folks love to hear, like right now in the meat department, we have bacon at such and such price. Please stop over, check it out. People we love to hear that. So just try to use that to make announcements on some of your close dated product, or just to bring some awareness. You may have a skid of product that you want to sell through. So make some announcements, and truly people will flutter and buy it. One thing is important too is competitive shopping. You want to know where your prices fit in with other grocery stores in your area. And one thing about here in North Flint, we had 2 grocery stores that left the area because of profit, and another one came on board and was closed in 3 months. And one of the reasons why they closed is their prices were way too high. So the question I get asked by so many individuals is, well, are your prices going to be high? And my answer for them is, they won't be high, they will be competitive. So I want to let people know that we're not going to be the cheapest in town. There's no way we can be the cheapest in town, but you let them know that you're going to be competitive. But as a general manager, I think it's important that you know what your competition is in your area and see if your gallon milk is the highest in town, then you need to really go back and see how you can reduce that, because you want to be competitive, but you definitely don't want to be the highest in town. And publication, I think it's very important to get the message out to your residents. Using social media, your website are some great advantages. Sometimes people use ads, but we're trying to keep costs down. So try to think of ways that you can get the message out at a cost-saving idea.
I wanted to ask you, you say competitive shopping. Is this a place, you were talking about lightening the toolkit, lightening the toolbox when your GM shows up and has all his work to do. Like, could the board get all the information on all the competitors and have that like in a nice little spreadsheet for the GM when they show up? Could the board actually even participate in getting some of those price comparisons? Like, I'm looking for places where it seems like a reasonable fit for the board to either prep to make the toolkit lighter for the GM or to press in and help. What would be your thoughts on that in that area?
Well, that's a very good question. And that could become from the board. It can become from some of your, let's say your member owners. You know, some of your member owners may want to volunteer some of their time. That's a great way to volunteer your time. For me, of course, you know, everyone knows the general manager, they know your face. So if I walk into an actual competitor, they know who I am right Johnny on the spot. But you want to make sure that you're just being low key about it. You're not trying to bring too much awareness, but you definitely want to know what your competition is in your area.
Hey, Peggy follows up this with a great question. I think you could probably do a whole hour on this, but how will you cut costs to keep your prices competitive? Do you have a plan for how you're going to respond to folks who say prices are too high, which is kind of inevitable at a food co-op to some degree?
Well, first of all, we're in a pandemic. The supply chain is in disarray. The food is expensive than it was a couple of years ago. So you want to make sure that you just give that information to your community. How are you going to keep them low? You're going to have to keep them competitive. I think that's the only way you can do, because if I like to tell some folks that we're going to do our best with our suppliers, we're going to do best with our local farmers, because that's one thing that we want to showcase in our produce area is we want to buy locally. So we want to be able to partner with local farmers, bring their farms, their pictures into the store so we can showcase that to our customers. But that's very important that you're working closely with suppliers, local suppliers, to see how you can keep the cost down. And you're trying to keep it away from your shoppers. But in today's society, with the supply chain in such disarray, if you walk into food areas now, their shelves are just being totally wiped out. So that is going to be a very hard pill to swallow, but you just try to find every way possible to do that.
Great. And I want to mention to those of you who are considering AWG, because this is a unique challenge to being a conventional focused food co-op. I do have a ton of photos I took when I went to Gem City of just their price points. I just took a bunch of photos, different shelves, to give you guys some impressions of what the prices are looking like. They have a 3-tier program where basically they have they have their, you know, low entry, kind of, you'd see it in a dollar store. They have kind of your midpoint, which is your brand name conventional. And then sometimes they also have the highest price point, which is something organic, local, clean, conventional, so forth. And, you know, To me, it seemed pretty competitive. If anyone's interested in seeing those photos, I can dump them in a folder and link you so you can get a feel for what it might look like to be a store with an 80-20 mix and what your price points might come out like. If you're interested in that, go ahead and drop that in the chat. And I think we've cut through most of the questions. Oh, wait, what are your considerations, Arlene, for setting up the feel and ambience of store to really make everyone in your community feel welcome?
Well, we want to make sure that, like I said, the produce will be our first layout. And then we go walk into the dairy. And then you go to your meat department. And the outside of that would be the deli and then the bakery. And in the middle of that would be your health and wellness, your frozen area, and your dry goods. Our theme is, as you can see behind me, the colors are black, yellow, red, and green. That's going to be trimmed throughout the store. So for instance, our shelving will be black shelves. Our floor will have a design with gray, green, and red throughout. And then we are going to have our walls painted with some of these same colors. So the theme is going throughout the store. Does that answer your question?
Does that, I wonder, because I don't want to extrapolate about what that individual meant. So I'm going to say, this was Katie. Katie, did that speak to your question, or did you want to illustrate a little more what you were asking?
Hi, I guess I was wondering more about the feel of the space when you walk in. We're getting ready to design our space and thinking about, like what does the space evoke when you walk inside of it? Yeah.
Okay. So for instance, when you walk into your produce or in our produce department, and you walk into the door, your produce is right there. And if it's not your produce area, it needs to have that wow moment. When people walk in, it's like, you want to get them like, wow, this is really different. Or wow, this is a great display. But give them that wow moment. And what your wow moment looks like, for me, it's a produce area. I think the produce is what makes our food co-ops pop. And you want to make sure that that's nicely full at all times. And your team is going to give that wow moment, because the food co-op is giving something that our conventional stores cannot. And we're giving that one-on-one. We're giving that, let me show you how to find that product, or this is the best plum that you ever tasted. You want to have that interaction with your customers, with your team, and that team comes from you. So when it comes to getting the team pumped up, you have those moments where you have like a pump up moment that you bring everyone to the sales floor. You tell them like, hey, this is our day. These are the sales we got to do. Let's go out there. Let's make those sales. Make it your wow moment. And that will create the atmosphere in your store. Did I answer your question, Katie?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
All right, we've gotten through those questions, and I don't want to keep you from getting through the rest of your slides. So,
okay, guys, here we go. Let's see. And this goes into our question: what type of working environment will you create in your co-op store? And we were just talking about it with Katie. So we're just going to teamwork. This is a team. You want to create that atmosphere as a team. And this is how you're going to work through your highs and your lows. You want to celebrate your wins, and you want to have those conversations behind closed doors on what we can work on. Communication is the key. You can't expect people to do something if they don't know what you're talking about. So sometimes you need to elaborate what you mean, or you may need to give an example what you mean. But this is new for some folks. I mean, in the food co-op industry in our area, this is the first of its kind. So we have got to think outside the box rather than like a conventional store. So that's going to take some more understanding and get people into the mindset of what a co-op industry looks like. Sharing ideas. Your general manager does not have all the ideas, but listen to your team. They may have some wonderful ideas of what they can do in your Delhi area. Take that under consideration, see how that can work out. It may be a win, it may be a loss, but I truly believe that you gotta share those ideas and celebrate. It's so important to be able to celebrate those wins with your team and let them know when we made sales or we didn't make sales. Maybe we need to, maybe transition something, but always keep in mind that you want to share those ideas with your team. And safety. You want to make sure you have a safe environment and you want to be following food safety. And remember, you want to have fun with this. This is an exciting time. It's something new in your area and you want to be able to have fun with your team on that. Any questions? Okay, we're going to go right into my last segment, connecting with your community. One thing about, for me, I was able to come on board before the pandemic. So we were able to get out in our community as well as your board is doing right now, but we were having fun. So what we did is, as you can see, this was our city councilman that came out and participated in a water dump. So we were able to dump one of our city councilmen and the children loved it. So it was a great way to bring your partnership with your dignitaries as well as the community. And this is another way we work through the hospitals, our fire and police, our churches, schools, and community leaders to all come together to find out ways that we can have fun in the area where our store was going to be built. And this is all before pandemic, but the children loved it. And it didn't cost us anything. All of this was through donations. And you'll be surprised of how many people want to just donate some of their money from their businesses to help put this day of play on, is what we called it. And this is just some of the different businesses that we partner with, and they were happy to be part of it. We created events around our core shoppers, and that would be female, single parent with children. So we even designed and had an Easter egg hunt, and all of the local children came out to the event, and we were able to just put on a nice little Easter egg hunt that we did inside because of the weather, and they had a great time. And these are just some of the slides that we put together. Not only is we're doing a food co-op grocery store, we're trying to bring other resources into this area that we feel is very necessary. So we got together with some of our member owners, and they were able to share financial literacy. Because one of the things that we have our co-op is an event center. This event center is able to put on events as well as training and education pieces. And one of the things that we did was a financial literacy program. We also partnered with our local colleges, such as U of M Flint, and we were able to put on programs or workshops for young entrepreneurs, giving them the tools that they would need to become entrepreneurs. And this was led by the North Flint Food Market. And I can tell you that we had some wonderful ideas from some of our young entrepreneurs, and we was able to give them a membership to the co-op for completing these courses. And it's something that they can share with their businesses, as well as if they're going off to school. It was a great resume to put on their applications. And what we did was, from the Young Entrepreneur Workshop, we were able to launch our Stop and Shop. So our Stop and Shop is where we were able to give platform to local vendors to sell their products. It didn't cost us anything, but it got our name out there. So what we did is over the summer, I was able to host 7 events where local vendors came out, set up their tents, they sell their products. And what the hope is once the store is built, our event center will host our vendors, our local vendors, and they can sell their products at a least cost to the store. But this is a great way, if they don't have the brick and mortar, they will have a place to sell their products, and the foot traffic from the store will generate more activity for their businesses. And this is just some of our pictures here. And of course, that's me shopping because I really like to support our local vendors, and this is a way for me to give back.
Of course, everybody found these last slides the most exciting. So mission driven. And that was just some terrific stuff you guys have done. I did miss a question when we have only a couple minutes here, a little bit back when you were talking about motivating your team and your employees. So I suppose I missed this. Rachel asked, how are you going to pump up, motivate employees? Are there going to be incentive programs? You talked about the team huddles and stuff, but are there going to be programs, benefits? Like, what do you see also as part of keeping that team and motivation together for your employees?
Well, great question. I truly believe that you should recognize your team. If, for instance, if you have a customer that says, hey, Julie was awesome, you want to capture that and just say, well, hello team, we just received a guest compliment for Julie and an outstanding job she did. Those little bitty things right there will create so much morale that you're going to need when you have days where it seems like it may be overwhelming, but you got to keep that team pumped up. One of the things I like to say is you don't want to come in like a bird. A bird is flapping their wings around. As a general manager, you do not want to have that type of image when you're coming into your store. So you want to be able to share your wins with your team and keep that morale going. Recognize your team and the outstanding jobs they're doing. And if there are conversations that need to be had, make sure those conversations are never happening on the floor, always behind closed doors. Because as HR, it's very important that when you do have to have tough conversations, that you make sure that everything is documented.
Absolutely. We're gonna head toward wrap up, guys, because we always wrap up in time, and I want to respect Arlene's time. But if we could just take a minute and just give some appreciation to Arlene, to sharing her deep years of experience with us and kind of that GM perspective. So grateful to her to coming and do this, because I will tell you, usually after a speaker speaks, I'm like, and here's their email if you want to contact them. Here's the reality. General managers are working such incredibly long hours that they are the last I'm not going to do that to her. If you guys have questions that you'd love to throw to Arlene, send them my way, and if I can't answer them, I'll pass them on. But it's something to get used to about GMs. You will never meet somebody who works longer hours or is more busy. So and they're so passionate about the mission. So I'm sure Arlene would love to answer all of your questions. But I don't know that she wants me handing out her email, so I don't do that to GMs. So, but if you have more questions, for sure, pass them on to me, and I can pass them on to Arlene if there's something we can't answer. Real quick, I just want to talk about what's coming up. Tomorrow is taking online payments, and actually Kingston, who's in the room, Kingston Food Co-op, will be on our panel. Prairie Food Co-op and Wild Onion Markets. This is a peer panel talking about how they take online payments, the technology they're using, the hiccups they've run into. This is something that a lot of early stage startups have asked us for, so we're gonna solidify that. And thanks so much to Kingston and others for sharing their knowledge. Exciting one coming up Tuesday, pros and cons of nonprofit partners. This is going to be facilitated by Darnell Adams, but we've really seen that all of the Black-led startup food co-ops, other than one, that is either far along or has opened in the last 5 years has had a strong nonprofit partner. And so we're going to have the brilliant board chair, Dr. Wilbright from Detroit's People Food Co-op here. We're going to have Gem City Market, their project manager, Leela. And then we're also going to have Shoni Black here, who was a core organizer of the Renaissance Co-op Grocery. So I really hope you guys will join us for that one. They're really blazing some trails and a model that really, I think, is going to continue to have major impacts on how we organize startup food co-ops. So if you're not working with a nonprofit, I encourage you to come learn about it. They're really blazing a new trail. And then owner engagement next Wednesday, and store design. Again, I mentioned at the beginning that this is about how do we involve our owners in a reasonable way, in a powerful and meaningful way in the actual design of our store. And this is the 7 Roots group. They design stores, they do store interior design and product mix design. And they're going to talk about how you integrate your owners in a meaningful way. So it's going to be some great stuff. I hope you guys will join us. And just a real quick shout out. This FCI Live series would not be possible without the funding of the USDA and National Cooperative Bank, National Cooperative Grocers, and CoBank. We're really grateful to them for their support. So I hope you'll join us for more of the series coming up, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. And thanks again to Arlene.